And how about the cost? I mean, typically, how much does it take to break into this business?
Sure. Of course, we are a franchise organization, so there are certain franchising costs associated with the business. As I've already mentioned, there's the physical classroom requirement.
Yeah, so we have to.
So there's still going to be some infrastructure cost on that aspect, and of course, the business needs to grow. You'll still need to do some marketing. This is very much a B2B business, business to business. So there's certainly a sales component where you have salespeople calling companies, speaking to HR managers and IT managers and the like.
So my target audience, my target consumers or my target client would be the workers from companies.
It is the workers, which again, some companies will pay for their employees to do training. Some companies will not. And some individuals either expect their company to pay for it, or they recognize if they want to advance their career, they'll need to pay for themselves. So the target market is primarily medium-sized and large businesses first, and governments, because they tend to spend more money on employees to do training than smaller companies do.
All right.
And then, of course, any adult that's, say, age 21 and above.
If you want to study something,
if they want to become better at IT or better at business and management, but don't have time to go back to a university or an academic program, New Horizons is the type of company that they can do advanced training with.
Do you teach English, though?
We do teach English in some markets.
Okay. We're going to need that in this market, though.
We do, and in some markets, certainly non-English speaking markets, we have a number of partners that teach English. But the core there is that we're actually keeping those as two separate businesses.
All right.
Because if I'm going to be a professional at a company, either I'm doing technology or management, I need those skill sets.
Okay.
And rarely, if I'm going to be a non-employee, do I need those types of skill sets. Whereas English speaking, often many people will want to learn that and understand that for numerous reasons, which might have to do with their job or it might not.
All right.
So some of the students that train on English are not necessarily coming from a professional corporate perspective.
Okay.
So we do keep them separate, but certainly many of these students could go to the English language type programs. So yes, we do have some English language programs. We're actually expanding in that area, but we do keep those as separate businesses.
Okay. So, and just IT business,
IT and professional development
and
English language.
Okay. So if I become a franchisee, would that be like an exclusive franchisees, or would it be like you got to deal with one guy, or
ultimately that is
locations?
Ultimately for small and medium-sized markets, and Vietnam's a medium-sized market. Our long-term objective is to have only one franchise partner for the entire country.
One guy. I can open many locations if I become your franchisee.
Correct. How that normally works is it'll be one partner for, say, Ho Chi Minh City, and then we work with them exclusively in that local market to help them get the first training center built and the staff understand how it works. And assuming that goes well, then we start talking to that partner about opening the training centers in other markets in the country.
And
that's the strategy
how
we
is the
typically
cost
use.
of doing business?
When you add the small training facility, the franchising cost, and getting it started, in most markets it's a few $100,000.
Okay. And if I'm the franchisee, typically how many teachers do I need to hire? I mean, for one center?
Most will start with 2 or 3 trainers, but over time that will certainly grow. And many of our markets might have as many as 20 or 30 trainers employed by the franchisee.
And the trainer is going to sit in front of computers and
be in a classroom or in front of a computer and doing the live human-to-human teaching.
What seems to be the typical challenge for a new franchisees when it started something like this in a new market?
My personal experience, I happen to have been with the company for 18 years, so I've worked with numerous franchisees. I find the biggest obstacle is really understanding that this is a business-to-business business.
Okay.
Most people, when they think training, they think academic and they think consumer.
All right.
So there is a bit of a difference.
That's what I thought at the beginning.
That's what most people think.
Okay.
So the biggest obstacle is really getting to understand that your main customer is a true professional adult customer, or it's a manager of a corporation. And those people tend to be a lot more discerning on how they make their buying decisions than an individual who's a consumer who might just have some extra money and want to take a few courses here and there.
Okay.
Those people certainly want to learn. Any consumer who's paying for training wants to learn, But generally, if I'm a manager of a business, I have goals and benchmarks I have to meet. So this education better help me achieve those, or better help my staff achieve those.
Okay.
If I'm a professional, I have career goals. This education better help me achieve those career goals. So typically understanding that this is more of a truly professional business-to-business type training company is the biggest obstacle that most people have to overcome.
All right. What kind of training that you provide for franchisees?
Certainly. Well, of course, we are a franchisor, so there are some standard things. But we have the initial franchise training, and then we have ongoing local training. And we, as a franchisor, we actually are a bit bigger than most, I think, education franchisors. We have our headquarters, which is in the U.S., but we also have local regional offices for Southeast Asia, that is in Singapore.
Okay.
So the way we like to do the initial training is half of that is done in the U.S.,
Okay.
and that's typically for the owner or manager of the business. And
So
then
we have to fly to the U.S.
correct, you'd have to fly to the U.S. for 1 week of initial training, and then that individual or individuals return to the local market. Then the local office begins to help them prepare the training facility, look for the staff, even possibly help interview some of the staff, make some recommendations. And then once that facility is prepared and the local team is ready, we then come here locally to do the second half of the training, which is preparing the local staff. So that's the type of initial training we give. A fair amount of support ongoing after that, of course. There are regional directors of support that work with the general manager of the business.
Okay.
They often will provide site visits coming to the local market to help the general manager. We also have conferences a couple of times a year where the owners and GMs and some other staff come together sharing ideas, best practices, etc.
So basically I have to invest in my own facility, I have to hire my own teacher, but I get program materials from you, right?
Fundamentally correct.
What makes your programs different? I mean,
well, one of the things about, well, there's two different areas. You have the IT training and of course the non-IT. In the IT training space, you can either offer authorized IT training or unauthorized. And the guys, or the individuals or the companies that do the authorization are the vendors themselves, the Microsofts, the VMwares, the Apples, etc. And what our objective is to be a vendor authorized training company. So we work very deeply with many of the major software companies.
you mean we can get certificate from
Ultimately, yes.
Okay.
Can get a little bit lengthy to explain in the first chat.
I got it.
But ultimately, New Horizons is authorized. With our local partners, we work to get them authorized. And then the IT curriculum is coming from the vendor.
Okay.
The solutions in the cloud
All right.
to run all of the cloud-based training and software is something that we're hosting and we develop.
All right.
So it's a combination of both, working with the vendors and working with us direct to provide all of the tools and resources that the local franchisee needs to run the business. That's in the authorized. In the unauthorized, we do have some of our own curriculum that we've created that we give to the franchisee.
Okay.
And again, in the cloud, it's still our systems.
Okay. So have you talked to any potential franchisees yet so far in Vietnam?
Yes.
And how is the reaction so far?
Certainly. We've had a number of meetings today. We have a few more tomorrow and Friday. We're at phase one, so to speak, of finding a partner for Vietnam. It does take quite a few months. Again, we're only looking for one partner. So we want to make sure that they want to marry us and we want to marry them.
That's going to take time.
Certainly.
Yep.
So we'll have a number of months of discussions.
Yep.
I think initially most people, as kind of explained, they start thinking, well, you're academic and is this type of a university thing? And then once they start thinking about the reality of what we are as a business, they start thinking about the large corporations and the banks and the manufacturing firms. And we've actually had a meeting with a bank today, and they discussed with us that they have a huge internal training need.
All right.
And they wanted to start talking to us and understand how we could accomplish some of those internal training needs. And one of the questions was, would we have to still fly all of our employees to one central location?
Okay.
So I think the initial interest is there.
Okay.
And I think just like in every other country, though, there's always hesitation to believe, is this market actually going to move from classroom to virtual?
Oh, it's going to take time.
But the core to that is to remember what we're saying. We're not saying that we're a virtual learning company.
Okay.
We're a professional adult learning company. We have both. We believe it's going to change over time. There's lots of research on the internet. I could quote some numbers about the percentage growth of virtual learning, something about 30.2%.
But I don't think we have much of that model here.
It's not here
The
yet.
virtual learning. We
not.
have the recorded video training, online training though.
Agreed. The recorded video is basically anyone can record a YouTube video and put it online. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a genuine human instructor teaching other humans. So I think that the interest is there, but of course there's always some concern and hesitation. Will this work here? Which is partially why we take a number of months to go through discussions, do some analysis, before either party can make that decision to proceed.
I mean, if this market's big enough, I mean, would you come just open a representative instead of franchisees?
Good question. As a corporation, that is not how we operate.
Okay.
Again, we're in about 60 countries. Every one of those is through a local franchisee.
Okay.
And that's a business strategy we've used since we were founded. We have never owned and operated a training center outside of the United States. There might have been once or twice we did a small partnership with one of our partners here or there, but absolutely the large, well over 99% of our revenue is generated through a local franchisee network. Some companies choose to do that, some don't.
All right. Sounds good. I mean, there's the potential to me. I mean, we have
Certainly,
to find a good teacher, though. That's a big challenge.
Millions of individuals. English language level is growing quickly in Vietnam.
We expect that too, yeah.
There's certainly research about how in Southeast Asia, even countries like Philippines that are English speaking are starting to lose some of the IT outsourcing and infrastructure to Vietnam. There certainly seems to be a genuine desire here to play at that level, to even potentially take on the Indian market, etc.
And we have the startup industry.
If all of that can happen and does happen, there is definitively a need for the type of training that we're talking about.
We need more ITs, engineers, and the coders.
All of the above.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. So we need to hire good teachers and invest in the facility. Good luck with that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.